announcements. One is Lauren and Aubrey, they're up first. They want to say something about their giving tree. So I'll give them a moment to do that.
Morning. How are you? I'll carry the tree. I'm just the prop.
Hi, ma'am.
I got it.
Oh, beautiful.
Did
Oh, that's
anyone
cool.
want to do blessing for the tree? If
We can hear you.
if you do, there's
Put the microphone down.
paper and things out there, and
Welcome room.
and you can hang it on the tree.
That's the tree. It'll be back out there at this.
All right.
Yeah.
We're counting all our blessings, so we know this tree won't hold them all. We might have to get some vases.
Yeah.
Audrey and Jordan are in charge of the tree.
Your blessing, right?
Yay.
Thank you.
Yay.
Good idea.
And I think Barb Herzog has an announcement about Thanksgiving dinner.
Hello, everybody. So we're going to have Thanksgiving dinner on the 18th, and the church is going to provide the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the rolls, the turkeys. So we need everything else except those things. And if somebody's willing to cook a turkey, the church will buy the turkey. We just need a cooker. So let me know.
Is there gonna be a sign up for salads or desserts?
There is
or
a sign up. It's kind of a crude sign up I did last week, and I forgot to do a much prettier one, but it works.
I wrote in weeks ago.
Are we gonna take a head count for who plans to attend?
We can do that next week.
Okay, any other general
No,
announcements?
I don't bust you for anything.
Going once, going twice. I have two minor ones. One, I saw a thing on the evening news where people were taking their leftover Halloween candy that they didn't want and sending it to groups overseas like we did last year. So if we have a lot of Halloween candy, that might be an idea, something to do with it.
Or I could eat it.
You can send them to my house.
Yeah, we'll eat it.
And two, I'm playing with the idea of having an outdoor bonfire at my house about a mile that way, but we need good weather to do that and not wet and rainy. So, other than that, other announcements. Okay, then moving on. We ring the bowl in universal oneness and feel the vibration that unites in love and peace. Our lighted candle symbolizes the Christ light presence in all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Terry Whitey, and happy to be here today, happy to see all of you. If you would, please take a moment to turn off your cell phones if you have not done so. And then we will move on and read our mission statement and our vision statement. And if you would join with me in reading the mission statement at the front of the program. The Center for Universal Oneness is a place where those who want support on their spiritual journey may join with others for mutual encouragement, inspiration, and guidance. The Center draws on those practices based in new thought and metaphysical approaches. The higher Christ consciousness provides the foundation. We strive to live in the oneness of love. The vision statement. Extending into the world faith, love, peace, and joy. Hey, Doug's going to lead us in prayer.
Let's join in prayer. Centering our minds, relaxing our bodies, bringing our focus to the divine. We know that life is consciousness, and we know that the divine mind holds us all. So we strive to join in alignment with that divine mind, using clarity of thought to reach the values and virtues of the divine. We open our hearts for the assurance of the love that we receive from all goodness and beauty. And we thank the Lord for our opportunity to come together to share our spiritual journey. Thank you, God. And so it is.
So we're going to start today with a George Harrison song, and I want you to feel free to sing along. It's a song about ego, and you might know the words. If you don't know the words to the chorus, it's simple. It's I, me, mine, and it's kind of like a toddler stomping their feet and having a temper tantrum. So if anyone wants to stomp their feet and have a temper tantrum while we're singing the chorus, that's cool. Okay, here we go. All through the day, I me mine, I me mine, I me mine. All through the night, I me mine, I me mine, I me mine. Now they're frightened of leaving it, everyone's weaving it, coming on strong all the time. All through the day, I me mine. 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 All I can hear, I me mine, I me mine, I me mine. Even those tears, I me mine, I me mine, I me mine. No one's frightened of playing it, everyone's saying it, flowing more freely than wine. All through the day, I be mine. I'll 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 be mine. All I can hear, I be mine, I be mine, I be mine. Even those tears, I be mine, I be mine, I be mine. No one's frightened of playing it, everyone's saying it, flowing more freely than wine. All through the day, I be mine.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun. I want to thank Peggy Chilson, who's been with us many times before. Thank you for being here again.
You're welcome.
And
Mr. Hicks. Yes, Mr. Hicks.
And I will remind everyone she can be seen and heard at California's singing with her jazz trio the third Wednesday of the month from 5:30 to 7:30. Is that still right?
That is correct.
Thank you. we should all go down and see you.
Well, that's
Yes.
what's coming Wednesday.
The third Wednesday, when is that?
Oh,
It
the
shouldn't be
third
this
Wednesday.
one.
This will be the first one.
Yeah, it's the third Wednesday. Nope,
We've been there once, Jerry.
nearly had a heart attack.
We should go again.
Hey, we should.
That'll be Thanksgiving, I think.
The third
Wednesday
Wednesday?
before.
Oh, Wednesday,
I think that's
Thanksgiving Eve.
Thanksgiving Eve, yes.
Lord have mercy.
Alrighty. Our main speaker today, Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, going to be speaking on ego. He is one of Unity's leading metaphysical authorities and has had a major role in bringing Unity's metaphysics into the 21st century. With a genuine passion for clarity and precision, Paul guides people to awaken awareness and deepen understanding. He is well versed in the published and unpublished writings of Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. Paul is known for his passion, clarity, precision, and making Unity teachings understandable. Paul teaches and speaks around the United States. Advise the happy.
Wow. Wow. Wow, my ego feels good. That was just perfect.
Yay!
You obviously read my email.
I did.
Yeah. And I wish I could do the I'm gonna go do like antics like you did. That was really good. Yeah. Let's give another round of applause.
Like that one? Oh my God.
Hi, everybody. Hi. I just realized I didn't set up my slide advancer, so I'll do that. I'll do it. Okay. Yeah. So, Leggo my ego. Yeah. And so that's often read as we've got to let go our ego. And really, when I was creating this talk, it was like, I want you to let go of my ego. You let, because don't we like do that to each other? You know, don't we say, well, it was just your ego, you know? Or just ignore your ego. Don't we do that kind of stuff? And you know what? It really doesn't work for me. So are you ready to hear something different? You know that's what I do. Right. And you know this is interactive, yes?
Okay.
Interactive, okay. Good. So, it's not considered good form to brag about extinguishing your ego. And isn't that what a lot of spiritual teachings are about? How do we kill off? How do we control? How do we extinguish our ego and all that stuff? And on this paper, I hadn't seen this, but this is great. It says, curiously, the ego's hold is weakened by acceptance, familiarity, and compassionate understanding. In contrast, it is reinforced by self-criticism, condemnation, fear, and shame. Now, of those two, which has the most energy? Right. Okay. So if we really know our New Thought teachings, it's no longer curious. Because when we're holding that stuff in consciousness with a strong feeling like fear, that's the part we're growing. That's the part we're making larger. So in consciousness, what you fight, what you resist, persist, right? Yeah, so we shouldn't be surprised, and yet we do. And have you noticed that once we got rid of the devil, we had to have another one? Right? Yeah. So now, who do we blame all the bad stuff on?
Politicians.
Okay, this is a public service announcement. During this service, we're not doing politics. I don't care what ilk you are, it irks me. No. All right, and how many of you heard this? Your ego is not your amigo. Right? Yeah, you know, it's like, really? Have you lived? And then there's this one. Did you guys hear this one? Edging God out. That's the one that was popular way back in the last century when I was starting to study Unity at Unity Village in the 90s. Edging God out. It's a metaphysical impossibility, though. It's absolutely impossible to edge God out. In fact, okay, so I'm going to do this probably every once in a while today, so take a deep breath. Guess what you're using to create your ego?
God.
No.
Consciousness.
Yes, you're using God. Did you ever think about that?
No.
Charles and Myrtle Fillmore said, everything that changes is based on something that doesn't change in the divine. In the divine. Ouch. So really, the way in which we manifest our personality, our ego, is by erroneously using divine principle according to divine law. We misuse the principles because the principles don't care how they're used. Look, if the ego had an independent existence or had a different origin, now you're back into a dualistic thought system where there is a power that opposes God. And what is one of our fundamental teachings? One power, one presence. Charles Fillmore said, there is only one power. If you send it out in hate, it destroys. If you send it out in love, it unifies, or something like that. There are not two powers. There are two ways of using power, and there's really a multitude. So hate and love have the same origin. One's a skilled use of principle, and one is the unskilled and usually unconscious use. Are we doing okay? Yeah. Remember, this is interactive, okay? Right. All right. So Charles said the ego is the sum total of characteristics that each person has personalized as distinct of himself or herself. Yes? Does that make sense? The ego is the sum total of characteristics that each person has personified or personalized as distinct of himself or herself. I really think I just should sit there. Whoops, wrong direction. So if you didn't have an ego, are there other fans of Gary Larson in town? Yeah, so if we didn't have an ego in this relative world, we'd be like boneless chickens. You know, this is the one I like the most. The chicken's kind of over the fence. Really funny.
The one looking up.
All right. Now, there is that of our ego, which is negative, and which we could call bad. And it still has the same origin in the divine. Adverse ego. When the ego attaches itself to sense consciousness, it builds the Antichrist. This is where we kind of needed like music to go. Ooh. And join me. Let's do this. Adverse ego. When the ego attaches itself to sense consciousness, it builds the Antichrist. Ooh. Okay? You guys are good. You've gotten better since I was here. It is the adverse ego that causes all the trouble in the world. Okay? And we're not doing politics. Okay? So this is our new devil in a way. But it doesn't have a different origin, a separate origin than your higher self. If it did, there would now be two powers. Okay? And if it had a separate origin, you couldn't do anything about it. If it had a separate origin from your divine nature, you couldn't do anything about it. You know? I mean, how many of you were traditional Christians and said, the devil made me do it? You know, blaming it on the devil. Or maybe you were like, everybody remember Jessica Rabbit? Yeah. Jessica Rabbit, when she says, I'm not really bad, I'm just drawn that way. Remember that? world. It's just the way the illustrator drew her, right? So I went back and watched that last night, a little bit of it. Oh, the Me Too movement would have had it gone crazy over that. I mean, it was so inappropriate. Okay. The ego's selfishness and greed makes us grovel in the mire of materiality. Ooh. The ego's selfishness and greed makes us grovel in the mire of materiality when we might soar in the heavens of spirituality. I soar in the heaven of spirituality. Let's say that. I soar in the heavens of spirituality. Yes. And what is it that helps us soar in the heavens of spirituality? The supportive part of our ego. Your ego's not all bad, is it?
Nope.
No. I hope not. So the adverse personality is a veil or mask worn by humankind that conceals the real, the spiritual I am. Jesus shattered that mask and revealed Christ, the divine idea of humankind. Have you ever heard that definition of Christ? No, we don't. We use the word Christ. It's a feel-good word, but we really haven't invested the time to define what this Christ is. And in Keep It True Lent, Charles Fillmore defined Christ as the idea that contains ideas, or it's the divine idea of humankind. See, Christ is the Son of God in a unity context. You know, remember, I'm a child of God and therefore I do, okay? Myrtle didn't believe she was a child of God. It's a metaphor. We are children to God as an idea is to mind. You hear that? Because we define God as mind, don't we? One of the ways. And what does mind have? Idea. So your ideas are the child or the children of your mind. That's this. Christ is the divine idea of humankind in divine mind. Making shut up.
Wait, question.
Yeah.
Is that like we are the illustrator?
We are the illustrator.
Yeah. So
we are the illustrator. You are the creator.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Using divine ideas or divine principles to manifest yourself. That's how it works. Ego. The I. The ego is humankind, and by reason of our divinity, we make and remake as we wills. I did do a good job adapting that, did I? My adverse ego made me do it. Okay? So look, this is Charles. By reason of our divinity. Ego, okay? Have you ever thought of your ego in the context of your divinity? No, okay? So you're divine. You've learned that, haven't you? That there is that of you that is the divine that's unchangeable. And because we are divine, and that's unchangeable, we can use that to change what is, the ego. Don't you notice you're making and remaking yourself all the time?
Yeah.
Right? Hopefully. I mean, that's what becoming enlightened or becoming more spiritual is all about, is when we become aware of those things in our adverse ego that we're using to get in the way. We don't go, I can't do anything about it. We say, I can change because I'm divine. And then he went on to say, in this concept, our divinity, in this lie our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. When we misuse our divinity, we get adverse ego. When we misuse our divinity, we get adverse ego. When we use it to its highest potential, we get supportive ego. Yes? And we manifest our higher self. Your higher self is ego, folks. Your higher self is personality. Charles had a word for it. I don't like it because it's like individuality. Charlie Brown's teacher, right? Wah, wah, wah. See, what I'm trying to do is help you understand Fillmore and not read Fillmore and then Fillmore's going wah, 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 right? Okay, I hope I am.
Question.
Yes?
Doesn't individuality speak of duality?
So individuality is what you manifest out of your divinity, okay? In this relative world, there appears to be separation. And where we're one is in our divinity. And that's the part of us that doesn't change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this absolute of us, this divinity of us that doesn't change, and somehow, some way, each of us is using it to manifest consciousness or personality and a physical body. That's how it works. But the physical realm and the realm of consciousness does not work the same as the absolute. Because physicality and consciousness change and are changeable. Aren't we grateful for that? Yeah. Then he says this, to further put the nail in the coffin that the ego is all bad. Through the door of the ego's consciousness must pass all the treasures of God. What do you think that means? Right. Thank you for saying that. We read that and it sounds like wah, 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 wah. Okay? And one of the reasons why it's like wah, 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 because there's something in psychology and the way in which we know our minds and consciousness works. It's called confirmation bias. That's a technical term. What that means is, if you believe your ego is all bad, when you read this sentence, you don't even see it. Or you don't understand it. What are the treasures of God? Wouldn't it be good if we knew what those were? Anybody have any idea?
Joy.
Joy.
Love.
Love.
12 powers.
12 powers.
Imagination.
Imagination is one of them. Okay? So, if you can name a power or a principle, the 12 powers are 12 divine ideas. You know that, yes? Or we could call them 12 principles. When we know what they are, we can now use them consciously instead of using them unconsciously and unskillfully manifest adverse ego. Yes? Makes sense? Is it making sense? Every one of those divine principles that God is available at the point of view. Some of them we experience as an effect. Sherry mentioned one. Joy is an effect of using principle. If someone said love, and you're talking about the feeling, that's an effect of using principle. Oh. Too early for the snowstorm. I'm going to sit down here and do this because it's progressive. So at the core of your beingness and the core of my beingness is the divine or the I am. When we name it that, it feels good and not particularly usable. But if I tell you your divinity is made up of the 12 powers, or 12 principles, or 12 divine ideas, it becomes more usable. And that's what we're after. That's what makes this practical metaphysics, okay? And then, remember that mask? We hide it with who I think I am and who I'm afraid I am. And who I'm afraid I am, I put into the adverse ego bucket, let's call it, okay? And because I'm aware of some of this stuff, this negative stuff, I'm afraid that if you knew this negative stuff about me, you would go away. You wouldn't like me, you wouldn't love me. So what do? Cover it up with a pretend self. Pretend who I pretend to be so you'll like me. And then if you experience someone who is authentically expressing more of their divine nature, more of those treasures of God, and they don't know how to do it, they put it on like another layer that I call spiritual icing. Okay? Spiritual icing. And so it looks like it.
Looks like a Twinkie.
But it's like a Twinkie. With that chocolate stuff inside, not the white stuff. Right? And you've met this person who's kind of like sickeningly sick, like,
Yep.
like sticky icing, right? Okay? I was that at one point till I realized it wasn't authentic. And if a person's coming from their spiritual icing, pretending to be, to hide who they're afraid they are, if you cross them, what do you think shows up? Adverse ego. What I call my ugly twin. Paulina. Female.
I was gonna say, is there any particular reason why it's ugly and female?
Let's not go there. I'm already in trouble.
I'm meaning to.
I'm just balancing out my.
There you go.
Okay. So all of this is personality or ego. Okay. You guys have an ugly twin, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you learn to get rid of it.
You think you're in trouble?
This may be worse than talking about politics.
It might be.
Okay, so we have our personality and then we have our higher self. Our higher self is still of the relative realm, however, it's based on our divinity, okay? Based on our divinity. More clearly on our divinity, because all of this, yellow, is using divine idea to manifest, okay? As is this. This is doing it more consciously and more aware and all of that. Yes? Yes, ma'am.
I don't think I ever really understood the words of Ernest Holmes when he said, and it's on the banner in the church that we go to in the summer, there is a power in the universe and you can use it for good.
Yes.
That's exactly what you're saying.
You can use it for good,
You can use it for
and you can use it for ill.
good. Exactly.
There's no poster.
There's no poster. There needs to be. It needs to be in our faces that we can use the treasures of God for the good, the bad, and the ugly. The treasures of God do not come with instructions. We are the ones. Just think. So imagination is one of the treasures, right? It's one of the 12 powers. Now, this is a pretty advanced group, but I'm going to ask this question anyway. Has anybody in here ever worried? Worry is an unskilled use of the principle of imagination. Yes.
Yeah.
You see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's true of every principle. Okay? That's why it's important we know what those principles are. That's why I'm writing the book. To be out in 2024 at the rate I'm going. Okay, I need 4 men and 4 women up here to show you something here about how this all works.
Do we have
Come on,
4
don't
men?
Be shy. Come on, men. Come on, ladies. I need the men on one side and the ladies on the other. There's not much room here to do this, but we're going to do it anyway.
I did.
So the women coming over here. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
One more girl.
One more woman.
Can she?
There we go. Sure.
There's a woman.
You're a woman, aren't you? Actually, she's a woman in training. Isn't she doing a good job?
Yes, she's doing a fabulous job.
And your name is?
Aubrey.
Aubrey.
Nice.
Nice name.
That's just.
Okay, so,
Be sure to get a picture of it.
okay, but I'm gonna move you anyway. Okay, come over here. Okay, you're gonna be here,
Oh, between those two guys.
okay? Okay, so we lost somebody here.
I'm right here.
Okay, so you can
She's
come.
behind you.
Okay, and now we need a little space here. Okay. All right. Okay, so here we have Aubrey, and of course, it's easy to see her higher self or her I amness, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and even though she's a little one, I bet there are things she thinks about herself, who she thinks she is, and maybe who she's afraid she is. And notice how who she thinks she is and afraid she is looks totally different than her higher self, doesn't it? Okay? And so because there's these things she's afraid she is, she makes a pretend self up. And notice, I'll pay you later. There's who she pretends to be, and notice that looks very different than either who she thinks she is and afraid she is, and who she is. With me? Same thing on this side. We got Terry over here, right? So Terry, that's his higher self, okay? I'm actually going to change these to higher self because that's clearer, okay? And then there's who he thinks he is and who he's afraid he is, and totally different, right? Yeah, and then who he pretends to be, right?
Good at that.
You're good at that. Right? Okay, so Aubrey and Terry meet. Okay? Who does Terry meet of these here? Who do you meet?
I think she is.
Who do you meet here?
I mean, the other I am.
Okay, so that's where we want to go.
Yep.
Okay? But if we jump there now, we won't have the learning we need. So before you knew that, who do you meet?
Who I pretend to be.
Right. It's your pretend self meets the other pretend self, right? Okay, so he needs to be here. Okay.
We are the no self.
Hey! Okay. You need to go back to where you were.
Like
Now, you can stay there for the moment, okay? So that's how it works, doesn't it? Okay? It doesn't. Terry's pretend self doesn't meet Aubrey's pretend self. Okay? You can go back to where you were. Thank you.
Come on, my friend. Now I want to see what I am.
His pretend self meets who Terry thinks she is, based on all of his experience with women over his lifetime. Uh-oh, right? So this is the problem, right? So and we're not conscious of it. I'm hoping this makes you conscious. Is when you meet anybody, you're meeting them through your filters, okay? And that's why she's here in Terry's brain cell rather than over here. Now you gotta come closer here. Okay. Likewise, Aubrey doesn't meet any of those. She meets who she thinks Terry is. For all the same reasons. And in her short lifetime, she's made up some beliefs about males and men. And those are filters she has in her mind. Are you with me? Okay? So we never really see the person for who or what they really are. Okay? Now, that's a big enough problem, but it gets worse. But wait, there's less. No. Okay? So, Aubrey keeps adjusting her pretend self to meet who she thinks Terry is. And when the Terry in her brain cell changes, she changes. When there's maybe nothing going on over there. You've done this, haven't you? Yeah, yeah. Same thing's happening here.
We're all like that.
We're all like that. So this pretend Terry is changing to meet who he thinks Aubrey is on an ongoing basis. And so we're in quicksand here, as long as we're basing our reality from our personalities. And that's why Terry wisely at the beginning said, so how do you solve the problem? You get acquainted with your higher self. And you see from your higher self. When you can see from your higher self, which is a type of ego, okay, because doesn't your higher self change?
Yeah, we like ourselves.
Okay, yes, yes.
Could you give an example of that?
Of which?
Of how your pretend self can see your higher self better so you can...
Yes, so it's all
How
about
do you do that?
becoming aware of all the treasures of God and what they are, and using them at the highest state of consciousness you possibly can.
An
Okay?
example of...
That's it, I'm going there.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's hope I'm going there. Because this is a really good question, right? Okay, so how many of you a year ago had a different higher self than you do today? Right? Okay, so you're already doing it. Okay, so you see a better way to be using your 12 powers, consciously or unconsciously. You become that, you live from that, feels good for a while, and then you notice you can be better. You change again. And it's really a process of what keeps us from being the best higher self we can be are the negative beliefs we hold about ourselves and others. And as each one of those comes into awareness, we can change that. And I have a slide on that at the end. Okay, is that helpful?
Oh, very.
Okay, good.
In my experience, I've been doing Course in Miracles for this past year, and the main thrust of that work is learning how to be unconditionally forgiving of others, seeing their innocence, which is the I am, rather than the errors that they show you that you cause you to reject or judge or be critical.
That's the process.
So the trying to become more forgiving and trying not to judge in the beginning so that I have to be more forgiving is one of the things I'm trying to do to lift my consciousness.
Yes, so it becomes a little deeper that we're not now trying to be forgiving, we are forgiving. And I don't want you to skip over the judgments you're making, because then we do a spiritual band-aid. We want to be aware of those judgments we're making about others, because that exposes the negative beliefs we hold. And we want to use denials to disempower those negative beliefs. Instead of, oh, I'm having a negative reaction, oh no, I'm going to be good. And then the next time that old belief shows up, you're back here again. Okay? So it's an ongoing process. He described the big picture. I'm bringing it to the nitty-gritty. Okay? Forgiveness happens when you're willing to let go of any hope of a better past. Did you hear that? Forgiveness happens when you're willing to let go of any hope of a better past. That is Gerald Jampolsky. Here's Paul Hasselbeck. Forgiveness happens when I'm willing to let go of everything I've added to your divinity. Because I can only hold against you that stuff that isn't about your divinity. Forgiveness happens when I'm willing to let go of everything I've added to your true nature. Self-forgiveness happens the same way. I am able to forgive myself when I'm willing to let go of all the beliefs and opinions I have about myself that's not related to my divinity. Are you with me? Yeah. So forgiveness is about changing your perception. Course in Miracles, the miracle is a shift in perception, shifting my perception from who I think you are to who I know you are. You see the difference? Yeah. Course in Miracles calls that a miracle. Unity calls it forgiveness. Okay, and Course does it away too. Are we good with that? Yes.
I totally agree with what you said and what Doug said, but I would really like to emphasize the part of the Course and what you're saying that emphasizes self-forgiveness as a huge part of that process.
Yes, so thank you for emphasizing that. Did you hear me say that? Because I want to make sure it didn't get missed.
Yeah, you said.
Okay, so self-forgiveness is really important, okay? Because beating yourself up creates a negative frame of consciousness from which you manifest because of the law of mind action, okay? All right, thank everybody here. Thank you, thank you. All right, so that's what's happening with interpersonal interaction. And then there's a particular type of interpersonal interaction I want to share about, just to bring awareness that we're taught, the belief is, I have to find my other half.
I did. I found mine.
Okay. I don't think you did.
Aww.
Okay.
Sorry, honey.
You're going to see what you found. Okay.
I'm pretending to be otherwise.
I mean, isn't this what we're taught?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a teaching that reinforces our old Christian belief that we're not good enough.
And we're not whole.
That I'm only a half. Are you with me? Okay? And we're told that when I find my other half, we get a whole relationship, right?
Yeah.
But none of you have probably experienced this. What most of us experience is that this relationship is multiplicative. Yes?
Bummer.
Yeah, so from our woundedness multiplies, right? Are you with me? And so who I think you met was more like this.
Uh-oh.
Okay? What do we do? Whoops, I forgot I had that slide in there. Okay? When you are coming from your wholeness and you're in a relationship with somebody coming from their wholeness, that's when you get a whole relationship. Okay? Now look, we're not always in that wholeness state. It's just that we want to encourage ourselves and our partners to live more and more fully from our higher selves. Okay? Are we good with that? Okay. So this is it. This answers your question. Little by little, we cast out the specific thoughts, beliefs, ideas, images that have accumulated and built up the false or adverse state of consciousness. Okay? We shift by changing one thought, one idea, one belief at a time. And when you shift one belief, it affects other beliefs in your belief system. So this is what we've been taught. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And we go there to spiritual being because God created you in His image and likeness. So we believe from our traditional theology that God is a being, therefore I'm a being. Wrong. Did you forget that God is mind idea? That's what you are. You are the image and likeness of mind idea. You are the image and likeness of principle. So here's how I like to say it. I am spiritual beingness manifesting a human experience. Do you see a difference in those two statements another way? This, it looks like the human experience is happening to me. That I'm not responsible. Guess what? You are. You are spiritual beingness manifesting your personality and your body.
Wait a minute, I have to take a picture of that.
Yes, so I gotta,
Okay, thanks.
I'll share something with you in a minute. So how do we do this? I'm gonna sit down again. So we invest time in meditation and prayer. Notice I don't say spend. When you spend, you use up. When you invest, you get return. We invest time in meditation and prayer. We gotta claim our divinity. Embrace your ego. It is your creation after all. And all the negative stuff that you can become aware of in your ego gives you the raw material to make yourself better. Realize the ego is nothing more than a bag of beliefs. Stop giving the adverse beliefs power and significance, and change or transform the beliefs about yourself that do not support your divine nature. And Unity has given us a magnificent tool. Unfortunately, Chuck didn't tell us how to use it well. It's called the 12 Powers. Your 12 powers I call team consciousness. They are divine ideas or principles that you can use to shift your consciousness. And the way you do it is by becoming aware of a belief or idea that no longer serves you. And so I think of the power of elimination as my bouncer. That's what I use to bounce out of my belief system, okay? And you can think of each of the 12 powers as positions on team consciousness where you're the coach. And you tell them what to do. And step by step, moment by moment, you can shift your consciousness. I claim my divinity now. Let's say that together. I claim my divinity now. And again. I claim my divinity now. So I'll have a sheet in the back, along with my books, where you can give me your name and email address. And if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, I'm happy to share it with you. Okay? And I also put you on my mailing list. And you can always reply with unsubscribe. One of the things you'll get if you don't unsubscribe is the absolute word, which is my version of Sunday Daily Word in clearer language, claiming our divinity. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Paul, you will do a meditation.
Yes. I just didn't want that to be distracting. All right, everybody. So this one's on. Is this one on too? All right. So let us take a deep breath as a way to center and as the starting point of shifting our awareness, shifting our consciousness from the outer to the inner. And as you let the chair support you right where you are, know that there's that of you, your divine nature, made up of principle and law that you've been using your whole life. And that supports you. You use it to manifest yourself. And in this moment, as we go into silence, use your principle or divine idea or power of imagination to imagine your higher self, your best self right now. What is that best self doing thinking, saying, being. When you're your best self, what do you do? What do you think? What do you say? I am divine now. Let's say that together. I am divine now. And let's take that affirmation into the silence. I am divine now. Let's say it again. I am divine now. Again. I am divine now. Now repeat after me. I am faith, strength, and wisdom. Together. I am faith, strength, and wisdom. I am love, power, and understanding. I am love, power, and understanding. I am imagination, will, and order. I am imagination, will, and order. I am zeal, renunciation, and life. I am zeal, renunciation, and life. I am divine, made up of those divine principles. I am divine, made up of those divine principles. I am divine. I am divine. Say it with conviction. I am divine. One more time. I am divine. And so you are, and so I am, and so it is. Amen. Amen.
Hey.
Hey.
This song is called Just Let Go. It's by an artist called Sturgill Simpson.
Sturgill?
Sturgill Simpson. He's appears to be what'd you call him, a cosmic cowboy?
Yeah, I love that.
So I'm gonna channel Cosmic Cowboy. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
No. Listen to the words.
Woke up today and decided to kill my ego. It ain't ever done me no good, no how. Gonna break through and blast off to the bardo. And them flowers of life far away from the here and now. Taking a 49 divine day vacation from reality and all else in between. Gonna transmigrate to my destination, far behind time in an eternal dream. Am I dreaming? Am I dying? Either way, I don't mind it at all. Oh, it feels so good, you just can't help cry. Oh, you have to let go so the soul may fall.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful, everything you
much to both Paul and Peggy.
Yes.
It is now,
Right.
that's right. It is now time for the offering. Baskets will be passed on both sides. Thank you for your gifts. And as the baskets start to go around, let's say our offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am joy-filled and grateful. Baskets to go around. Then we will move on to community concerns. Looks like that's about it. Okay, community concerns. Do we have any people that need to be prayed for? Any? Rainium.
My youngest son and his family, my youngest grandchild, was pretty viciously attacked by a bully a couple days ago. And the total extent of his injuries aren't known yet. It's not life-threatening, but certainly could be life-altering.
Is there a hospital or particular place to send prayers to?
No, but his name is Ethan Ross.
Okay. Others? Well, that was a short one then. All right, then the prayer for community concerns. Centering our hearts and minds in prayer, we let go of any thoughts of worry or challenge and simply rest in the stillness. We know that our source of strength and peace comes from God alone. We give thanks for divine order and trust that we are all held in the power of grace. Next Sunday, we welcome Warren Teachout as our speaker and David Adams as our musician. So we look forward to that.
Hey, if anyone knows, this song I'm going to be singing and I'm closing is called Water by Daniel Namad. And feel free to sing along if you happen to know the words. It's such a nice song. I've seen my share of struggle when I thought that I knew best, when I sailed through a storm instead of stopping for a rest. And it always seems the hardest when I've made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water coming down from a mountain in shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head up straight into the wind? He doesn't pick a fight, spreads his wings and just gives in. And in the end he always makes it home just fine. Guess he knows that each storm subsides. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain in shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I let nature take its course, no more thinking that I know where this river's meant to go. I've railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I've never won, for the heartache that I felt. But it always
always seems when I let go of expectations and regret. Life has plenty of surprises for me, yeah. I wanna be like water coming down from the mountains in shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, no hill no more. I am bound for the sea. Let's try that again. I wanna be like water coming down from a mountain in the shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea.
Let's all stand for the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Go forth and be divine.